Warm greetings, everyone. On behalf of W4W Foundation, a think tank instituted as a citizens collective, we welcome you to another session of Wednesdays for Water. The conversation today is on water efficient technologies and climate smart agriculture. Before we get into the subject, a brief overview of what we do at W4W. The objective of Wednesdays for Water is to engage in conversation with water experts, grassroots practitioners, policymakers, and youth to explore the complex intertwined issues associated with water and the possible solutions. It has expanded since then to have activities like the Friday water and the Monday munching with women for water. At W4W, we believe that water conversations are crucial towards water conservation. Do visit our website www.w4w.in for more details. My name is Mansee Bal Bhargava and I am the host and moderator for the session today and also representing W4W. As we discuss today water efficient technologies and climate smart agriculture, I like to look back from the time when we had green revolution, industrial revolution, and since then we have come really long way in terms of engineering new technologies, but also in terms of adaptations. But at the same time, it has brought a lot of challenges for many communities and many more things. There are many ways people look at it: water saving technologies, energy saving technologies, energy intensive, water intensive. We can go into all details, and for that, we have our experts today to talk about it. So I should stop here with telling about the experts today. We have Professor Chandrasekhar Bahinipati, Professor Rupam Shukla, and Dr. Suparna Tatyayani. And before I invite them, first of all, deep gratitude and thank you so much for accepting our invitation and also suggesting us the topic, which we have not touched actually so much in our Wednesdays for Water sessions, over 150 sessions we have conducted. So before I invite you all three to present your talks, I will just quickly go through each one of your bios. Maybe I'll do one after the other once you are presenting. So we start with Professor Chandrasekhar Bahinipati. Over the years, he has been working on research areas related to economics of climate change, environmental economics, behavioral economics, natural resource management, and development economics. He has published in several research and peer-reviewed high-impact journals. I'll keep it short here and then also take it further that he has also written quite a number of proposals for getting grants and projects. And just to give some names from here, that IC, SSR, and then Sandy, OECD grant proposals. He has also worked on different development corporations. Just to give again example with CIZ, DST, NWO, and then he has served as a member of INC from 2024 and again as nominated joint secretary there. He's been nominated also as a research fellow by the Earth System Governance Network at Utrecht University, Netherlands. So we also have a lot of connections between Netherlands with me and Chandra. So thank you so much, Chandra. And I invite you to give your talk and then I will invite other speakers with their biography.
So thank you. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, so hopefully it's visible also.
Yeah. We can see your slides.
Yeah, so what I thought, since my other two colleagues are going to talk on different perspective, I'm going to set the agenda. Thanks for Mansee for the invitation, and she has been following up with me maybe more than 6 months. I'm going to talk about that water adoption of water efficient technologies evidence from India. As you know, that in a country like India, most part of the most of the states, you can consider Punjab, Haryana, Rajasthan, Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu. So around 7, close to 10 states where you'll have water scarcity, the over extraction of, because where mostly some portion of these states where basically the irrigation is mostly depend on the groundwater and it's depleting over the years. That's the extraction of the groundwater. That's why. So over the years, maybe in the last 2, 3, or 4 decades, people are talking about the water efficient technologies, or how to reduce or stabilize the use of the groundwater. So let me start. I'll not talk much on this because as you know that Indian agriculture faces 2 kinds of risk. One is the yield shock, another is the market shock. So here basically the yield shock, which basically comes from the combination of factors, so you can compounding effects, which includes climate change, water scarcity, pest and disease management, and other factors which basically affect the uh, yield of the agriculture products. And various studies in the last 2 decades, if you look at any systematic paper on the impact of climate change on Indian agriculture, it says that there's a negative impact across the states and across the place and the region. There is a negative impact. So it's basically have the significant impact on the food and nutrition securities. So what is the option? How to protect the livelihood of the large number of farmers? The one way that you can upscale the climate smart agriculture practices, which basically address the major challenges of climate change, as the food security is basically mentioned in the last IPCC report, that basically climate smart agriculture means promoting the agriculture strategies that basically address the major challenges of climate change and food security. I'm not going to mention that, okay, it has linkages with the various sustainable development goals. So why it is important for the country like India? Because in India, as you know, that around 85% of the farmers are small and marginal. They own less than 2 hectares of agricultural land. And so therefore, so they're basically having the high variability in their income. And in fact, the recent surveys, maybe the last NSSO surveys of 2012, 13, and 18, 19, says that more than half of the farmers prefer to change the profession if there's an option. So this is a very worrisome situation that, okay, either more than half of the farmers are looking for the other opportunities, or that next generation is looking for the other opportunities. So what will happen? It will have a significant impact on the food and nutrition security. There's a major concern is that providing the sustainable livelihood opportunities, that's basically minimize the volatility in agricultural income, and basically promoting the climate smart agriculture practices. So here I'm going to focus on 2 things. One is the micro irrigation, that including drip and sprinkler irrigation. The various studies and various literature, some of you are aware that is basically called as the sustainable intensification, because it reduces the groundwater extraction, stabilizes the groundwater and energy use. So therefore, in several states, the subsidy is given to the farmers for the adoption of the micro irrigation to cover their upfront cost. It varies across the states. It depends on the landholding, cost, geographical location. It basically varies from 50 to 90% across the states. So there's 2 things here: micro irrigation and resource efficiency and utilization. See, one thing, that water applied and water consumed. You should understand the 2 things: water applied and water consumes. Water applied is a technology potential. But okay, how much water you basically apply in a per hectare of agricultural land? Suppose use that hectare of agricultural land with micro irrigation. That is widely studied at the farm level. Okay, and several studies also found that it has also several other benefits: a decreased tillage requirement, increased crop yields, reduce electricity consumption, increase fertilizer use efficiency. It is, but water consumed, basically the farmer's behavior, how much water you consume. Understand the difference, because so far, because there is some kind of myth is there, this is a micro irrigation is mostly the sustainable intensification, or basically reduce the ground extraction. That's a myth. So it's basically reduce the water application at the plot level. But if you look at how much water you consume as a whole, as a resource level, you'll see that there's not much studies, including my own study in Gujarat and recent paper by the Ram Peaceman paper in Journal of Development Economics. And there are some other papers. They also, I think recent paper in Madhya Pradesh also, they also found that at the source level, we are actually not reducing water use. So therefore, there's a difference. You should understand the difference: water application and water consumption. So look at this. Given this I'm just putting from my own systematic review. You can see that given water scarcity is a major issue across the states in India, and several studies. I can read that this is called WM. That's basically water management options. Okay, and most of the studies are considered water management options as one of the climate smart agriculture practices. Okay, in comparison to other climate smart agriculture practices, if you look at the most of the studies, when they look at what are the climate smart agriculture practices across the different regions in India, water management comes one of the climate smart agriculture practices. Okay, I'll in fact come to the, I'll just finish it. I'll just not take much time here. As you know that there is something called Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana, which has come in time 2015-16, maybe the Suparna will discuss more on this. The idea is to pot drop more crop. So initially the micro-irrigation is coming under the centrally sponsored scheme in 2006. Then it was formed like National Mission for Micro-irrigation in 2010, and subsequently you have National Mission on Sustainable Agriculture and Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana. We'll see that by 2017, okay, only 13% overall potential area and 6% of the net sown area was under micro irrigation. You see that, okay, how much area we have yet to cover under micro irrigation. If you look at the March 2022 data, around 10% of the net sown area. Between 2017 and 2020, we have increased the 4%. We are having very low adoption of the micro irrigation across the states in India. But if you look at which are the states are the major players, you'll find that Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Karnataka, Gujarat, and Rajasthan and Haryana. These states, if you consider them, these states are basically having 70% of the total adoption of the micro irrigation in India. Okay, and if you look at the Andhra Pradesh, I'm going to little bit talk about Andhra Pradesh. Andhra Pradesh is doing not very much well as of now, but in comparison to other states, it has covered 32% of the total net sown area under the micro irrigation by 2022. Okay, so the literature basically look at two things. One is the determinants. Okay, why people are not adopting the micro irrigation, and second thing that looking at the tangible benefits of adopting the micro irrigation. But this I will not talk much on that because there's several literature found that, okay, it increases yield, reduces fertilizer use, there are other benefits. But very less literature looking at that, okay, what is happening at the source use of the extraction of the groundwater. So if you look at that, okay, I'm going to talk about, okay, adoption of micro irrigation. If you look at the 2022, if you look at the left-hand side figure, state-wise percentage of area under micro irrigation, you would take the entire country as 100%, out of which state how much share of having the in case of the micro irrigation. You'll see that Rajasthan, Gujarat, Maharashtra, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, and Tamil Nadu, if you sum them, and you'll see that it will be around 60 to 70%. And the remaining states you'll see is basically less than 5% of the adoption of the micro irrigation. The question is why? If you look at the middle figure, micro irrigation as percentage of net sown area, you will understand the similar figures. Okay, these are the states where basically how much percentage of the total net sown area in that particular state. You'll see that their adoption rate is high. Even Andhra Pradesh, it is around 32%. Tamil Nadu, it's around 26%, and Karnataka, it's around 22%, and Maharashtra is around 12%, and Gujarat 17%, and Rajasthan is 11%. And Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu is having the highest adoption in comparison to the other states. If you look at how much area, the last figure, the right-hand side, how much area we have added under the micro irrigation in the last 7 years as percentage of total area, you'll see that basically in the Karnataka, we have added 23.4%, and as similarly in Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh, we have added 11.2% and 13.8%. Okay, and state-wise percentage of micro irrigation 2015, and right at you'll see the 2022. I have comparing that, okay, what is happening with the 2015 and what is happening in the 2022. You will see that some states there is a declining of the percentage out of the total area in India, but this figure will be much clear. Micro irrigation coverage as percentage of net sown area in 2 years, 2015 as of the 2022. Okay, we'll see that when 18.7% was in Andhra Pradesh in 2015, it increased to 32.7%. Even Karnataka was moved from 8.4% to 22.5%. And Tamil Nadu moves from 26.6% to 26.5% of the net sown area. The question is that in Gujarat also 8.1 to 17.5%. The question that, okay, why in some states the adoption rate is increasing and in other states the adoption rate is not increasing, it's basically stagnant. So what basically I can say here, that it basically depends on the resource scarcity. Because in these states, you have scarcity of resources, basically the groundwater. So that's why people are adopting to micro irrigation. Okay, if you look, I'll show that while taking the Andhra Pradesh case study. You see that I've taken the Rayalaseema region, which is basically consisting of the 4 districts. Now it's basically 8 districts. I'm taking the earlier districts, which are basically before it's formed to 8, now the earlier 4 districts, which basically called as the Rayalaseema region. You see that irrigation percentage of groundwater is basically close to 90%. Okay, and there are some talukas which basically called as the overexploitation region. So Rayalaseema historically is a drought-prone region. If you look at the papers in 1960s published in EPW, they mentioned that, okay, Rayalaseema is historically a drought-prone region, but there's water scarcity region. See, look at the adoption rate. If you look at the percentage of farmers adopted micro irrigation, so I compare here the Rayalaseema and other districts. Rayalaseema in the 4 districts and remaining around other districts. See that in the Rayalaseema, the adoption in 2022-23 and 23-24 is more than 60%. And in compared to other states, it's basically 33, 34, 33, and 36%. And if you look at the area under micro irrigation in Rayalaseema and other districts, you see that in Rayalaseema is basically high adoption in the case of the area under micro irrigation. Similarly, you'll see that subsidy under micro irrigation, they're basically given the higher adoption, subsidy amount will be definitely higher. So when you ask the farmers, because this basically, how much time do you have? Another 2-3 minutes, can I take? Okay. Reason for adopting micro irrigation, when I ask the farmers, because I've done a survey of around close to 400 farmers in the Rayalaseema region. So why you adopt the micro irrigation? The most of the farmers say that it's because of the subsidy from the government. And 63.6% farmers say that it's basically saving of water, and other reasons you can get it is less than 40%. Increased irrigated area also 37.84%. And where you basically receive the information about the micro irrigation, close to 90% based on from the neighbor farmers. Agriculture extension around 50%. Farmer producer organization only 20%. Other government agencies 40%. You see that people are basically learning about the micro irrigation from the neighbor farmers rather than the government agencies which basically deal with agricultural activities. So what are the major barriers for implementing the micro irrigation? So see, if you look at that in 2010, the papers published by Palanisamy et al. In EPW, they're used to mention that credit constraint is the major reason for adopting micro irrigation. Given the subsidy amount now, nowadays, I don't think credit constraint is a major reason for the farmers to adopt the micro irrigation. Okay, so major challenge they face basically operation. So basically implementing the micro irrigation, installation cost, assessing the subsidy amount, basically the paperwork required with the government to get the subsidy, and lack of technical knowledge and maintenance after installation. These are the major reasons. So last thing I'm going to talk about, okay, how we can increase the climate smart agriculture and including the micro irrigation practices. I'm just taking from my nature paper that, okay, these are the 4 barriers we have. Weak organizational capacities, because we have the weak organizational capacity like agricultural extension, Krishi Vigyan Kendra, and other farmer producer organization. If I tell you that, I'm not putting it here because of the time constraint. If you look at the last NSSU round survey of around 50,000 farmers in India, you'll see that, okay, what is the percentage of farmers access to these institutions, agriculture extension, Krishi Vigyan Kendra, as well as the farmer producer organization, it will be less than 10%. The farmers have access to this. Even you see that, okay, how many percent of farmers have access to radio, TV, even smartphones? It's this smartphones is basically less than 5%. Radio, TV is close to 20 to 30%. So it seems that there's a weak organizational capacities. There's a gap between the institutions we have and the farmers, the coordination between them. And there's another that, okay, inadequate targeted incentives. So give them the incentives. Sometimes these are the inadequate incentives. And last one is the limited post-adoption follow-up. This is most important in the case of the micro irrigation, because when the farmers, because we have the information that how many number of farmers adopted micro irrigation, but we don't know how many farmers are using at present micro irrigation. Okay, well, because given that having the less technical knowledge and how to, so when basically they change the cropping pattern, so they have to change the implementation of the micro irrigation pattern. So where there is a lacuna, when there is some kind of repairment is required, there's a maintenance issue. That's why most of the states now holding, I think, 10 to 20% of, I think 10% of the money. Maybe Suparna may clarify it. I think 10% of the total amount of money they're not giving to the micro irrigation providers. They're giving them after 5 years, because this is basically they have to provide them maintenance up to 5 years. I'll stop it here.
Thank you so much, Chandra. Thanks for the overview of the micro irrigation system state of affairs in the country. We will quickly move on to Sir Rupam Shukla, and I will first introduce her very briefly. Professor Rupam Shukla is presently a guest scientist and an assistant professor at the Center of Excellence in Disaster Mitigation and Management at the Indian Institute of Technology, IIT Roorkee. And prior to this, Rupam was also a postdoctoral researcher at the Adaptation in Agricultural Systems and Working Group. She describes herself as a geoscientist who works at the interface between society and natural environment with the ultimate goal of developing sustainable solutions to complex environmental problems. And irrigation system and agriculture itself is one of them. And it's good to have you here. Her research interest goes beyond to social vulnerability assessment, climate change, adaptation, and understanding impacts of climate change across different social and geographic contexts. So Rupam, you heard Chandra, and I'm going to really look forward to hearing you more from the people-centric, as well as you have climate change aspect also integrated into it. Over to you, Rupam. Thanks a lot for taking out time for us.
Thank you, Mansee. My screen is visible, and all is fine technically. So I would start by thanking you, Mansee, for leading this wonderful initiative, the W4W Foundation, and giving me the opportunity to talk about this. I don't so I am not really a technical person who is working on the water efficient systems, but because I work with the farming communities and the agriculture systems, water is something which is inbuilt, and it builds on and adds on the entire resource as such. So I'll share my experiences and some of the learnings, and then would be happy to discuss further with the participants and with the other panel members as well. Yeah, so agri-water sector, which is where, the intersection of the work that I do and also the topic that we have in discussion today, is the largest consumer of fresh water, both ground and surface water globally. And then 95% of the water which is withdrawn, a lot of it, I'm not so sure if these statistics hold true at the moment, because this is coming from FAO in 2016. but majority of the water is being used in food production, and it's something that is critical for the nation's food security and also for the livelihood security of people who are dependent on agriculture as a source of income, and all of us, for food, for our food needs and nutritional needs. However, currently the agri-water system is under a lot of threats and facing a lot of challenges for some reasons that are well known and being well documented in several studies. One being climate change, climate extremes, climate induced risks, whatever we want to term on the side, hazards, disasters. What it does is it changes the quantum of water that's available, and also it also alters the access to the water. So it's not just about the availability of water that's there, but how it can be effectively accessed. Then of course it affects the food security, food productivity, food crop yields. All of the food system is being affected. Nutritional security, because of the impacts that we are facing on the food systems, there is translating impacts on the nutritional aspects of our population. And then livelihood security is also there, which is getting affected. And all of this is interlinked in some way, not in a way that they are segregated, but there's an impact that cuts across. So if one system is getting affected, the impacts are translating on the other issues on the other sectors as well. Just putting that context, so we realize there's growing evidence and there is no doubt about having a need of water efficient technologies and climate smart agriculture. So there is a need, I think, that the government is also realizing, and there is learning from what Professor Chandra just spoke. So the government is also realizing this, that there's a need, and they are kind of incentivizing certain kind of practices. So that's on one aspect. The climate aspect is one, but there are other unintended rather challenges. Mansee, when you started the webinar, you hinted on the green revolution, and what that did was that it has altered the crop choices, right? With what was grown, maybe how heterogeneous our cropping system was, our food system was. When before the green revolution, it did not stay the same. So what we see here, in several years, and now in 2018, if we see the difference in the production of wheat, soya bean, rice, that has increased extensively. However, like millets and sorghum, these kind of crops, that there has been a decline in the productivity and in the in how much they are grown. So that there is a mismatch, and some of it is attributed to the green revolution. Also, what kind of incentives was present there for the farmers to choose wheat over any other crop? What were the market price? So that also then affects these challenges, then affect the other systems also. What we are doing, so this is a slide full of a lot of graphs, because I thought we have to like sum it up all in 6-7 slides, but I'll very briefly touch upon it. So talking about the other challenges, when we talk about climate smart agriculture, crop diversification is one of the important aspect of having a climate smart agriculture. So what we're doing in one of the studies is we have looked into at a district level that within a district, how many different types of crops are being grown. So if you see the darker color, the darker colors towards the red, they indicate that the district is growing different types of crop. And the area is also that, it's in proportion. So it takes into account not just the number of crops, but also the area in which these crops are being grown. So we see that there is, there are some districts where, so if you look at the graph here, which we see the green colors, that we see the districts are where there is a very high concentration of diversity, crop diversity. So it's all, kind of clubbed in this belt here in Karnataka, and then you have some of it in, Madhya Pradesh. And so it's kind of, that's how it looks. And when we look at how the crops are distribution, so what we how crops are distributed, what we did, we classified all these different types of, there are 58 types of different crops that the data we have. And when we group them into 7 broad categories, what we see is that, so for a high diversity, for a district that has a high diversity, the pie chart looks like this. Of course, cereals are dominating the production system, but you have other kind of fiber crops, there is oil seed that are also present there. Then you have pulses, and there is other type of crops that are also grown in that district. However, when we look at a district which is experiencing low diversity, it's most of the area is dominated by cereals. And that links back to the previous slide of, when we talk about climate smart agriculture, how are we at a district level, at a national level, how are we really addressing this complexity of getting to more homogeneous cropping system rather than the diversity that we had initially, and it's kind of declining over the time. And the other evidence that we have, that the districts where it's low diversity are also the districts where the diversity is declining over time. So there are some pockets where there is the challenges are going to intensify or are being already intensified. So yeah, so when we look at, at a national perspective, at a district perspective, we see homogeneous colors in which the districts are portrayed, in which, the whole district is portrayed in green here. That means we'll identify it as a high district, high diversity district, whereas this is all, in mustard color, and we say that it's low diversity district. But what I also wanted to point out is that these districts, systems, and societies that are living in these districts are extremely heterogeneous. And when we talk about, even when sir was talking about farmer communities, what he was also mentioning was the impression that a lot of us get is that it seems kind of homogeneous, that there is kind of a certain type of farmer and they're all doing similar kind of things. That's the numbers that we get at the aggregate level. But what we've found in our research is that there's an immense amount of heterogeneity that exists in the farming system, and it's somehow how we understood it could be defined as a function of the social and demographic characteristics of the household to which the farmer belongs, the age, gender, the experiences, number of years of experience with farming, the income, landing, and other aspects of income diversification. So the kind of approach or the adoption rate that a farmer will have will differ within these societies. And there are some tools that we've used to understand that how within a farming system, how can we identify these farmers type, and these are the aspects that we've used. And we identify 5 different types of farmers. And this is again a dense slide, but it's one of my favorite slides coming from my PhD work. What it does was that we asked all these 5 different types of farmers about the impact of climate change or changing climate in terms of increasing temperature and decreasing rainfall in parts of Uttarakhand. What we see, we ask them about impact on crop yield, food self-sufficiency, for how many number of months can the food that is produced on their fields can sustain their own household needs, water resources, crop quality, annual expenditure, income, soil fertility, and social bond. So there was an impact that was felt across all farmer types, and different farmer types were not differentiated when we understand the impact on crop yield. So everything looks similar for all farmer types. They say that yes, there is a higher impact. When we talk about annual income, also the impacts are quite similar, and there is no difference that we see among these 5 different types of farmers. These 5 different types of farmers, differ in terms of the resources they own. That's broadly what's differentiating, but also access to the market. So there is the farmer type 1, which has greater access to the market, whereas the farmer type 5 has has less access to the market and are marginalized in terms of land and resource they have. So that's the continuum that we have when we talk about from farmer type 1 to farmer type 5. But what's interesting to see is that there are differential impacts that are noticed on food self-sufficiency, the understanding of how water is being impacted, water resources that are being used for agriculture system, there exists a difference. So what we see is that there is a farmer type 1 that experiences, and these are the farmers that are wanting to upscale their agriculture practices. So they want to do more with their agriculture. So not just, when we even talk to farmers in field, there are not all the farmers that want to move out from agriculture, but there's some that, really want to intensify what they're doing also. So farmer type 1 are the farmer types that, are the types of farmer that want to intensify, do something more. But they say that, there is a higher increase or there is a higher impact on water resources. So that's why we're limited to what we could do, but we're not able to do it. And then other thing that, there is also a differential impact that is felt is on the social bonds. So there are two types of farmers, the farmer type, and both of these types of farmer belong to resource marginalized, set, and also having less access to market and mostly working as laborers and sharecroppers. And they say that the social bond that the community had initially is also kind of being impacted with the changes that are happening. And most of it, when you talk to farmers, at least in my experience, a lot of their climate change lens is mediated through impact on water systems. So when you might be asking them questions about climate, or you might think that the answers are linked to what climate is doing, but I think it's more in terms of the impact that they see and feel on the water sector, and most of it I think then links back to the talk today. So yeah, finally, I would like to conclude with three main points and arguments that I'm also taking forward with my research, is that we need to embrace that diversity and address it. So the needs within the farming community are differential, and there are different types of impact. When we even talk about introducing a scheme, we have to kind of look at solutions that are not similar, but it addresses these different segments that exist in the farming system and different types of farmers. Things that would work for a male farmer might not really work in the same way or in the same effectiveness for a woman farmer. So I think we need to understand some of those, and not just understand, but try to address it. Then second thing, when we talk about climate smart agriculture, there is and has to be a more intensive push, which is also happening at the moment, is to revisit the local cropping systems that existed. Initially, for instance, in Uttarakhand, there was a system of bara anaj, and then how some of those systems can be revisited and then mainstream now in the current practices, and look for solutions that focus on the main actor. And for when we talk about climate smart agriculture and water effective technologies, I think farmer is the main actor. They are the people who are who have to face it and who have to bear the brunt at the end of it, and have obviously not contributed so much to the entire problem that is at stake. But not just address them, and somehow try to view them from an intersectional lens, that the farmer them in itself is layered through to a layer of socio-demographic, then assets and endowments that they have, and also the production orientation that the farmer has. Not all of the farmers want to do the same thing with farming, and they also have a different kind of orientation towards what they want to achieve through farming. Yeah, so with this, I would like to thank you again, and yeah, any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Thank you so much, Rupam. And it was good to see that you raised this issue of diversity, not only in the farmer typology, but also in their need for cropping typology, as well as you raised the point of considering it the intersectionality. So it's a good time to invite Suparna, dear friend also. But before I invite her to speak, it is also important that I give a brief bio, and rest of the bio will be in the chat box. Dr. Suparna Katyayani is an interdisciplinary social ecological researcher with specialization in water resource governance. She brings together natural and social sciences aspects to bridge the knowledge and governance divide. Her focal areas are water, food, energy, nexus. So best thing to talk about here today. And advancing towards resource security, sustainable and inclusive development, and mainstreaming climate action in the water sector. Before joining CEEW, she was an assistant professor at the Tata Institute of Social Sciences, TIS, Hyderabad, at Natural Resource and Governance, which is where we got to know each other, and it just bonded well. And she has also been host at Wednesdays for Water in the past. And also she's coming back as a speaker. So welcome back, Suparna. Rest of your bio will be in the chat box to save time. Over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mansee, for this kind introduction. And I'm happy to be back on this platform in a different capacity this time. And I'll be building a little bit on what Professor Chandra and Professor Rupam have shared from their two different perspectives. So some of their findings would also resonate with what we did. We just concluded a study on policy coherence in food, land, and water systems, mainly to advance sustainable development in Indian states. So we did a study at the national level, and then deep dived into two states, Odisha and Rajasthan. I will speak a little bit about what was our focus, what was our approach to looking at policy coherence, because water use efficiency in agriculture and climate smart agriculture that we are talking about today has a lot of focus on why the coherence between policies on these three systems is not happening, and what can be further done to bring in that coordination between the policy. At this juncture, I would also like to say that this is a collaborative study of a CEW with EME. So EME is doing this work in 6 different countries in the world, mostly in the global south. And in India, they are partnering with CEW. And I would take you through a little bit of those insights. So the common point of interest for both EME and CEW was basically water security in different parts of India, and also how that is linked to food security and land security. So that was the commonality. And as I'm based in CEW, we look at various different ways in which we work on sustainable development. I work in a vertical called a sustainable water program, which is part of quality of life. And that is linked to bringing transformations through low carbon economy, through sustainable livelihoods, through energy transitions. And what does it enable? It enables climate resilience, sustainable finance, and other bits. So we are a big team of about 330 people and more. And more details you could find online. A little bit about the problem that we were looking at, and that is policy incoherence or fragmented environmental governance, which many of us are aware of. What is that level of fragmentation? Why does this coordination does not happen? And what are the missed opportunities when it comes to advancing sustainable development? And how can we further find synergies between policies? So here I'll just look at Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana Per Drop More Crop, which is exclusively an initiative on water use efficiency through drip irrigation, sprinkler irrigation. Um, um, at a large, it is micro irrigation that Professor Chandra also spoke about. So we took the path of Sustainable Development Goal number 17, where SDG 17.14 target exclusively talks about why policy coherence is such an important pathway to strengthen policy implementation and global partnership for sustainable development. Taking the cue from here, what we wanted to understand is the research gaps that exist when it comes to understanding policy coherence, and particularly in the food, land, and water systems, and particularly a global south perspective, and not only looking at one stage of the policy cycle, which is implementation, but looking at planning, impact evaluation, monitoring, and evaluation. So, all the 4 key stages of the policy cycle. So, our first challenge was to develop an innovative framework, and this is a collective team effort. We developed an innovative framework, which I'll introduce you to. It has 5 key dimensions. Very briefly, I'll take you through it. Then identify key policies. So as I mentioned, PMKSY, PDMC is an important policy. Identify it and learn from the good practices that already exist, plus the opportunities there are for further improvement. So these are the 5 key dimensions. It talks about coordination between the institutional levels, vertically and horizontally. So looking at the state, district, block, village governance levels, coordination between departments and within the department. Then external consistency looks at the synergies between policies and what are the potential trade-offs. Linkages also with SDG. Then the convergence is such an important term in the policy sphere in India. Everybody that we spoke to in the policy sphere, in the scientific sphere, could relate more with convergence than with coherence as a term. And flexibility and adaptability is what Professor Rupam was also talking about. Disasters and the uncertainties, which are also induced to some extent by climate change, on case by case basis. There are also changes posed by the society, by the economy. So those, what are the flexibility and adaptability mechanisms of the policy, and social inclusion? So what is the extent of inclusion of different vulnerable groups? So in the interest of time, I will only be briefly talking about what we found. And these are the methodological steps we took to shortlist the policy. So it required a exhaustive policy landscaping through online resources from different departments, then identifying relevant policies, building a database, and running it through some qualitative and quantitative criteria, and then finalizing the policy in consultation with the department. So this was very important step, that all the research and the selection of the policy was done in a consultative manner, in consultation with the government departments. And in at the national level, Niti Aayog guided a study. At the state level, the Department of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare and Farmers Empowerment in the two respective states guided a study. So what did we find about per drop, more crop? One thing is that the flexibility and adaptability mechanisms are inbuilt into the PMKSY PDMC. First example or a good lesson is that the state specific contextualization of the policy has happened in Rajasthan, which is aligned with the national guidelines, but also the state specific concerns come in. And because of the arid, semi arid characteristics of the state, per drop, more crop becomes a very important policy. So the alignment is with the national guidelines, but the state specific concerns of that aridity and semi aridity also comes in. Then there are also monitoring of policy progress through periodic meetings. So just one good example is there are weekly meetings that happen on every Monday with the head of the departments, and this is all the information is provided to the farmers as a major beneficiary group through the Raj Kisan Sathi portal. So there is a lot of adaptability to the social context because there is lack of information for the beneficiary, and this portal facilitates overcoming this challenge. The third adaptability is particularly to the social and the gender context of the state. So the trainings on operating micro irrigation systems is done through couples training, which is locally known as Dampati training. So where both the spouses get training and the micro irrigation setup can be run in the absence of one of the members of the household. This particularly is important when it comes to inclusion of women, because women are usually hesitant to avail the skill building and economic empowerment trainings that are planned for them. So this was very interesting example that we found. Another key finding that comes on the lines of social inclusion is basically there is a diverse set of beneficiary which are recognized. First is the small and marginal farmers, who are a specific vulnerable set of farmers with limited financial capacity to access the technology. Then the women farmers, so with at least 50% of the beneficiaries of the scheme have to be from these particular vulnerable groups. It also mandates 30% participation of women, and there is a multitask group that is also set up to enable community participation and inclusion of women. Then the historically disadvantaged group like the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribe also have particular provisions to include them. And if you see, the persons with disabilities was also mentioned in Professor Rupam's presentation in one of the diagrams. So there are prioritization of clearance of approvals for persons with disability so that they can avail the benefits. So one important aspect I would also like to cover, external consistency, which is a complicated term in our framework, talks about synergies, and the coherence can be built with the food, land, and water systems policy. So per drop, more crop has synergies with three other important policies. One is Atal Bhujal Yojana on groundwater sustainability, then the Rajasthan water sector livelihood improvement project, which is on irrigation plus gender mainstreaming and national food security mission. So all three programs have strong synergies. Per drop, more crop also has high positive linkages with SDG, and I could find some resonance with the presentation by Professor Chandra and Professor Rupam here. So food, nutrition, and health security is a big impact area where the SDGs linkage is with the per drop, more crop. Just to further give you an example, installation of micro irrigation system for production of bajra, which is produced largely in Rajasthan and also consumed. So that is something which is giving you an example of how the food nutrition and health security can be enhanced through the micro irrigation system, livelihood and jobs. So one of the experts shared with us that when farmers are equipped with technology, the production costs decrease and the income from the yield increases, and there is an opportunity provided to the farmers where they can lend their MI system to others. So there is that kind of, camaraderie within the community members to help each other out. And this not only generates income, livelihood opportunities, but also social, cohesion. And when we take it forward with climate change adaptation, so construction of farm ponds has led to conservation of runoff, and they can utilize the water from these farm ponds in adverse climatic conditions. And uncertainty due to no rainfall has also reduced because the whole system is improving, the water system is improving with the usage of this efficient technology. I like to end here with taking you through our three publications. They can be accessed online. So one, the Rajasthan study which I'm presenting today will be released very shortly by next week. So please feel free to read more on this and get in touch with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Suparna. Please, yes, close your presentation, and I request all the speakers to switch on their cameras so that we can take the conversation further from here. And I request all the participants here, and I'll just check on the YouTube. If you have any questions or comments or who are in the Zoom, you can either put your digital hand up or you can put in the chat box because they will look at it, and I will ideally prefer that you switch on your camera and speak to our speakers. By the time you warm up, I will just pose my small questions to each one of you to get a very quick round because we have already filled up the time. We are just having 10 to 15 minutes of Q&A now. So we will go a little more than 1 hour. So just coming to, I will take in the reverse order and take the taglines which really hit me. So I'm not summarizing today because I want to hear a little bit more from you. Suparna, you put it very nicely when you talked about if the farmers are empowered with technology, there's not only an increase in food production, but also you could witness some social cohesion. And I'm trying to link it with how Rupam was also trying to talk about this heterogeneity. And because we know the rural is quite heterogeneous if you look at the grain, but if you look at a district or at a region, it looks very different. But would you like to share some example of how, when you say that there is a little bit more social cohesion, or how their farmers are helping each other, and how technology is helping the social cohesion? Yeah,
Sure,
if
sure.
you can
Thank
be
you so
brief, that
much.
will be very nice.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much for your question. It's very interesting to see how the communities in India work, and particularly in state at the state level. So there is a lot of peer-to-peer learning, and there are also demonstrations where the progressive farmers, as we say, who have uptaken the technology, can actually help out other farmer groups to understand. Although it may look simple to many of us. When I saw the MI system, I found it really useful and also a little laborious to use. Plus, there is a technical element, the spacing, the kind of crop you can use, what is the market price, what is the season, for the usage, plus the dangers posed by rodents which damage the MI setup.
Mm.
So,
Mm.
when the peer-to-peer learning happens among the farmer group, that is building the social cohesion. And the common connect there is knowledge and technical knowledge. So, in short, that is my
Wonderful.
response.
Yeah, wonderful. So, Rupam, you were also talking about the social bonding being impacted, and you were also bringing a layer of climate change here, And I'm just curious to understand within, if I look into the grain, because you touched the grain of, in looking at the village level, let's say, and how people are different, how farmers' choices vary, how land holding also matters on what kind of crops you take, and on top of it, whether you are, you are techno friendly, or you are really you are having some kind of inhibition to adopt the technology. What's your experience of this? I want to extend the social bonding thing and also bring the woman component here. because women have been always a little bit reluctant, as the studies also show. But if you look at into the grain, I mean, when I see water sector and women, they are quite strong presence of women in water conservation. Do you see that also percolating in the farming way? Because in water and rural, it's very evident that women have a very, very, strong contribution. I know it also in farming it is there, but from your studies within the grains, what kind of divergence in the heterogeneity you could see? One I said already land holding, but also do you see this caste, class, gender in terms of heterogeneity? And how does that influence adoption of technology? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think gender in terms of where I surveyed in the parts of Uttarakhand, there is a lot of feminization of agriculture that has already happened with the outmigration
Wow.
of male members, and there is a lot of outmigration of the with the male members. So the kind of activities that the farmers were doing, also the farming activities, that has changed. And I think that has evolved, from how it was done before. And that because of the migration and because a lot of it has to be done by women now, the crop choices are also, being affected in some way. So I think it of course has an implication on how or the kind of adoption rate of technologies. But I would like to share an example of a woman farmer who, I had an opportunity to listen in one of the conferences that I attended, and she was talking about micro irrigation systems, and she was from Tamil Nadu. And what she was mentioning was so I got subsidy. I could afford. I'm doing all, and she was an independent, and she had no support from any other gender, and she was trying to do everything on her own. Very active, progressive. Yeah, so everything was in lines of how farming should be done, and at an individual level, what motivations was there, and which also spoke why she was there at the conference. So she said, okay, I was facing some problem with water, so I opted in for micro irrigation, and I opted in, I spend the money, I now have the structure and everything. But the challenges that she faced, and she said that, I spent 50% or more than 50% of what I earned in that year in setting up the system. But now the challenges that I face is that it demands too much of my time. It needs a lot of time for me, and to maintain the system I now need to hire someone. So I think that kind of a challenge is there. We introduce a policy, but how do we kind of sustain that initiative of that policy? That kind of mechanism sometimes are also differential for different genders, if we speak. And the other thing that she told was that that sometimes if there is a problem, and the challenge that she was facing was to maintain. So she knew how to operate it, but if something goes wrong, then she had to wait for, let's say, 7 days, or for a technical team to come and rectify that. So I think going back to some of the challenges that even Professor Chandrasekhar highlighted, that it's more about operational, and it's beyond the credit capacity, and it's more about the operational challenges that the farmers face. And I think, yeah, there also gender plays a role in, once it's adopted, then what challenges are being faced.
Yeah, I'm looking at the positive side of it is also, but that women are at that crossroad of becoming farmer entrepreneurs, where
Yeah,
they have to make a choice between their responsibility at home and upscaling it.
certainly,
So
certainly.
from
I
this
think,
little heterogeneity, yeah, go ahead, go ahead. You want to
yeah,
add
certainly.
something?
Yeah, just so I think there's a lot of initiative and innovation that the women farmers are doing in the agri sector with the SHGs, and I
Absolutely.
think the motivation that exists is quite out there. So yeah.
So absolutely, and I think there is also some policy trickle down, because there's a lot of focus on empowering women to do these things. I want to come to Chandra with your very striking and interesting figures, where you were talking about that certain states are outperforming and certain states have a long way to go to take up these micro irrigation techniques. And then you also mentioned that overall, in aggregate, India itself is underutilizing the possibilities it can get into the micro irrigation. So we have a long way to go. And I'm also aware of some of the techniques and all. And it probably is region specific that the certain cluster of farmers or this region they choose certain kind of techniques, and also the impetus which is given by the local officers or the local trainers, we can say. So where do you see from here that we are moving, and which are the states now we are like, I know Andhra is quite proactive. You also mentioned that with its 30% irrigation or agriculture happening with micro irrigation. So I'm just curious, where do you see we are heading with this, and what kind of state level impetus are given in certain states where you have worked so that they can increase their intervention into the irrigation system or agriculture?
Let me tell you, suppose you look at historical data till 2010. Okay, the paper was mentioned by the Palanisamy et al. And EPW. You see that hardly 5-7% or less than 10%, 5 to 7%. Mentioned that okay, of the potential area we have under micro irrigation. You'll see that okay, there's a less adoption in 2010 data set. But after you see that afterwards, you see because in those period also the most of the adoption was the states I mentioned: Rajasthan, Gujarat, Maharashtra, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, and Andhra Pradesh. Because I believe that these are the states have the water scarcity. Okay, water scarcity led to a innovation. Okay, to adopt some innovation. Because so something kind of opportunity cost. So because see, the subsidy is being given to the farmers in Odisha, but why adoption is less? But okay, the government subsidy is there, adopted, or the technologies are there. Same kind of technology also available to the farmers in Odisha and other parts of India. But why adoption is less?
Yes.
Because opportunity cost. Okay, of putting that amount of money, they find that okay, opportunity cost is less. But here they find that okay, opportunity cost is high, putting that amount of money because of the water scarcity. Okay, so water scarcity, the resource scarcity, I put at the resource scarcity is the major reason for the people to adopt. If you compare within the Andhra Pradesh, you will see that Royalseema has the 60% adoption, only 4 districts. Only 4 districts, only 60% adoption, and remaining part of the region is basically coastal Andhra Pradesh. The remaining part is coastal Andhra Pradesh. It's only 40%, which is around close to 10 districts. It will be little more than 10 districts. So it's basically where
you put it so simply. Sorry, go ahead. Please go ahead.
So I put it that okay, there could be, I'm just writing a paper that the resource scarcity could matter for the adoption of the innovation. When there's a scarce resources, they see how to cope with that and they see that. Otherwise, other places, I don't see that, okay, what is the other regions? The subsidy is there. And second thing that all the institutions like government is like, if I can talk about Gujarat, the Gujarat GRC has done very much well. If you look at the 2006, the GRC and providing the subsidy, increasing the subsidy amount to the small and marginal farmers in the caste by in the dark zone. That basically they call is the over extraction resource. The dark zone declared in sometimes 2003, where I basically worked on. So there basically they increase the subsidy amount. So now my paper shows that subsidy amount enhances the adoption. But only one thing we should be take caution, because I mentioned there's 2 things. So mostly we are talking about water application, not the water consumed. Okay, we need to take the caution on that. Okay, we are mostly looking at the water application, how much water you put in the field. Suppose you adopt a micro irrigation, it will be less. There are many studies. You can find 50 studies. I can tell you in India there will be 50 studies. If you do a survey of literature. But water consumed, how much water actually you consume, whether you are reducing the water, per drop more crop is fine. That concept is there. But stabilization of groundwater is a questionable. Because I found recent studies by the Ramkis man. Okay, it's found in Andhra Pradesh. Yeah, yes, we are not saving the groundwater. There's another study which is published recently. The 6 people in Madhya Pradesh, they are telling, okay, we are not saving the water. Even in my own study in 2019 in Gujarat, I found that, okay, really we are not saving the water because we have to look at the source level, the tube well, the bore well, where basically we extract the water. Okay, we extract the water from there.
Yes.
Main reason is that given the huge amount of land is irrigated, you have half, more than like close to half percentage of land is unirrigated. So whatever the potential amount of water you save, you basically irrigate in the unirrigated land. Okay, suppose you have amount of save. Then what happens? There's a many, because small and marginal farmers, they can't afford a borewell. So there's a water market, you sell them the water because you save some amount of water because of micro irrigation, same amount of water you sell to the neighborhood farmers. Okay, so someone can think of here. So maybe we are also writing a paper on that, something like we are putting the concept of weak and strong sustainability. Whether the micro irrigation is concerned or weak and strong sustainability, because we are putting that here. I'll just put it like weak sustainability is basically tell you substitution effect. You can substitute. Okay, you can use the water resources, sell to the neighborhood farmers, earn the money, or increasing your asset, increasing your human capital, or increasing your monetary resources. Okay, that's a substitute. You extract the resources and increasing your other capitals. So basically, we are looking at the weak sustainability. We are so far not putting that in the context of the strong sustainability.
Maybe you actually nailed it, because it's no matter how much technology you can go for, but end of the day, you need water to use that technology. And I think then it also justifies why we are having this discussion here today. So no water, how will you do technology? But it is also like a paradoxical situation where we are also looking at that the more advanced technologies we have, we are also running this paradox of using more water. So it's more like, it's we have to chase, catch me if you can. At some point in time, water will start saying, I mean, so, and then marginalized farmers are getting disadvantaged into this. I will invite Mazid Farooq to please unmute yourself and ask your question, whoever you would like to ask. Mazid, please unmute yourself, Mazid.
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening.
Basically, this is my first interaction with the W4W. So I am really happy that I could connect here. And
Thank
basically,
you.
I am a policy maker. From J&K, I am a scientist working in the field and trying to kind of implement the actions that we are proposing in our state action plans on climate change. Now, what I heard Chandra ji and Suprana ji and Rupam also, they were talking about the initiatives that have taken and the impact they have been able to made in the field. But while executing certain thing in the field, we basically they make the plans. They are from the community who make the plans, and we are the plans on ground. Now, while executing the plans on the ground, if say, for example, if we propose that this area is water deficient and we will have to put some rainwater harvesting structures there, and we may push in some sort of solar water pumps, or we have to introduce certain new variety of crops to given to the farmers, or we may switch over to the traditional farming varieties and give the farmers. So every action will have its pros and cons. Because what my question would be actually, the any of the members, panel members, can answer that question, since they have worked in the field and I have also implemented things in the field. What is the acceptability of the farmers to the new techniques? For example, we say them, the water is less, now you will have to switch over to the drip irrigation, or say the sprinkler irrigation. This, we are giving you new drought tolerant crop variety. You introduce this into your farm. What is the acceptability rate at the ground level for these interventions? What we are planning in our documents and while going and implementing it in the field?
wonderful question. It's again this relationship of water and acceptability of new technology, which we have been discussing. Maybe what we can do, we can also take it as a question, as a your closing remark, and each of you can take one region, one example, how has been the acceptability. We can start with Rupam, if you don't mind, Rupam. We can take your case study and just in a quick and also wrapping up yours.
Yeah, I think, and it's an excellent question, I must say, and all of us, are trying to get an answer to this. What I feel the scientists and the academic community has done is introduce the concept of co-production, right? So that kind of addresses the challenge that, is faced when we translate plans and guidelines and when we try to implement them. What co-production essentially says is that, wherever you have to implement it, start your plans from there, make that as a base. And I think, so at least from my experiences, farmers are looking for solutions to the problems that they're facing, right? So they are looking for problems, and more so for the immediate problems. So if I say that, this is something that's going to happen in the region after 10 years, it might not interest them. So immediate solutions, addressing immediate problems, solutions that address immediate problems, and making them a part of the entire process when we introduce something can enhance the opt-ins from the farmers. So that's what I would like to conclude with. Yeah.
Very interesting. I'm also trying to link it with the, water's deficient place are also very adaptive. But at the same time, if I look at Andhra, which is also quite good in water, they are also adaptive. So Suparna, maybe we hear a little bit from Rajasthan experience, because then we can peep into your book, which is coming up. Go ahead.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much. So I'll just talk on behalf of Rajasthan and Gujarat work, because we are collaborating with Professor Chandra on the Gujarat work. One simple response is the farmers who can take risk, are not risk averse, will adapt the technology faster. So maybe the large and the middle level farmers, but the small and marginal would be hesitant to adopt anything new. So that is what we are venturing into, because Gujarat is an excellent case where micro irrigation has been adopted very well and to a large extent. But
Well,
there are still challenges with the small and marginal. One is the water scarcity, the other is the risk appetite of the farmer, which is linked to their socioeconomic profiling. Yes.
Wonderfully put and nailed it. So, today the beauty is that we are traveling all over the country and looking at farmers of so many states. So, Chandra, I will request you to respond to this question, because Majid is calling from J&K. So, we are already touching even the north part. Maybe, Chandra, you can answer this question from Odisha and Andhra perspective. What is there?
With
ahead.
respect to policy, agricultural policy, suppose I talk about Odisha and Andhra Pradesh. I think in Andhra Pradesh, they have Andhra Pradesh something irrigation management. They have APMIP, and that actually they are providing the subsidy to the farmers, and it's basically they have. In comparison to earlier, now it is basically increasing the number of adoption. If you look at in Andhra Pradesh, in the last 5-10 years, the adoption is high because of the development of the, basically there's a restructuring of the institutions. I can call it that, okay, there's a restructuring of the institutional framework, the way they were working. So now they're basically changing it. But the only thing I'd like to mention here, so basically they are giving the responsibility, because now what happens, now the dealers driving it. Okay, the micro irrigation dealers, they are driving it, because the more adopters and their sale will increase and they'll get the profit. Okay, that's why rather than the government driving more, the dealers basically they have the marketing personnel. They go each door to door and motivate the farmers to take it, and they basically help the farmers to basically do all the work, the paperwork, because the upfront cost, whatever the amount, 10,000 to 50,000 that have to be paid through the bank. So they'll do all the paperwork. Okay, the guys do all the paper. But one paper actually we told that. So one of the lacuna here is innovation. That the companies will not do any innovation, because innovation reduces their opportunity cost. Basically, no, innovation reduces the cost of production. Once the cost of production of micro irrigation reduces, government will reduce the cost to giving them. So they know that, okay, I am going to get this much amount of money, okay, from the government. If I do the innovation and reducing my cost of production, so what will happen? Government will reduce the money. Okay, what is the amount fixed by the government? Government will reduce it. So that innovation is, I think, is less likely to happen. But actually, the irrigation, the micro irrigation farm, the Jain irrigation, and other people, they're actually driving it many.
Yes. Many places, many places. I can also bring example from Uttar Pradesh, as I was attending one of the advisory committee meetings for micro irrigation there with the irrigation. So, I mean, I think this is very important topic, and I feel that we need more discussion on it, but we have to respect time. And Manjeet, you are more than welcome to come on board as one of our speakers in future to stay connected, because we are now the longest water conversation also in the world with more than 300 sessions on board in our credit. And Wednesdays for Water is also our flagship program with more than 150 sessions. So do write to us, do check. And before I say vote of thanks to our speakers and participants, I would like to announce that this week, Friday Water session, we have an interesting book reading session, which is on December 6th at 5 to 6 p.m. And we are talking about the heads and tails of Ganga, which is a very interesting title it looks. And all the three authors of the book will be on board to talk about the making of the book, because in 1 hour we can't talk the book, but we talk about the making of the book. Next Wednesday, again, we have the IASC Commons series from Ostrom Workshop. And we take up speakers from Asia nowadays. So we have expanded beyond India to invite Asian speakers. And we are having a team from Sri Lanka to talk about the rainwater harvesting network, which is a huge network across Asia. But the speakers are coming from Sri Lanka to speak with us because they want to collaborate with W4W. So with this, thank you so much, Chandra, Suparna, and Rupam. I got a new friend today. I know Chandra and Suparna for some time now, and you will be on board with the W4W family. Thank you all the participants here, and I see some of them are also in the YouTube, for making these conversations meaningful. All these conversations are for everybody to bring this hard science into a citizen science mode, so that our wonderful, hardworking scientists can reach out to all of us in a very simple way, so that we can start appreciating the complex intertwined issues around water. We may not solve all of them, but understanding itself is a peace of mind. So with this, thank you so much, all of you. Please take care of yourself. Monday Munching with Women for Water will be resumed very soon. We are looking for women to talk about their water journey, not about water, but they are themselves. And at the same time, we have a very good news to share that we are on board to go this year's water festival at the Mahakumbh with Jal Akhada. We are preparing for it. We are nervous about it, but we are preparing for it. Thank you so much, all of you. Please take care and see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.